DAS International webinar. And I am Deborah Hughes, Assistant Director of Publicity and Publications at DAS, and I'll be your host alongside the Head of DAS International, Annaberta Oles-Jayan. Thank you for attending today's webinar, where our specialist tutors will be sharing about their learning journey at DAS International. But before we start, we have a bit of housekeeping. We will be collecting your questions and hope to provide answers at the end of this presentation, where we will have approximately 15 minutes to do so. We will also post answers to outstanding questions on the DAS International website. So let's get started. First, let me introduce Bhavani. Bhavani is a senior specialist tutor who has been with DAS since 2005. She has a master's in special education and is a firm believer in positive affirmations and ensures her students believe in themselves and their abilities. Next, we have Gladys. Gladys has been working with children for over 30 years and has a wealth of experience supporting students who learn differently, including her own daughter who has dyslexia. Next, we have Julie. Julie has lived in Singapore for nearly 20 years. We could call her a Singaporean. And has joined DAS in 2016. She has a strong background in English language and linguistics, which helps her to cultivate the love of learning in her students. Next, we have Meetal. Meetal is new to DAS International, but she has 9 years experience in the education field, supporting students with specific learning differences, and she encourages creativity in her learning activities. And Janitha joined DAS in 2011 and supports students of all ages and backgrounds. She instills hope in her students and says that this is the bearer of positive results. And finally, Cheryl. Cheryl has more than 18 years experience working with students with special needs and preschoolers and holds a master's in inclusive education. She is an advocate for mindfulness and she uses that in the classroom. So we will hand over now to the head of DAS International, Miss Annaberta Oles. Anna, over to you.
Hi, and thank you for that awesome introduction to Deborah, to all our teachers, all our specialist teachers today. Thank you so much for your time, taking the time today. Deb and I are hosts for today, and we are really enjoying the series of Spotlight teachers, and every month we are having a topic, and today our specialist teachers will be sharing their learning journey with everyone. It really is a learning journey because myself, I taught for 10 years as well as an educational therapist, and we really learn a lot along the way from your students. So they're going to share their experiences of teaching students with specific learning differences, with challenges, and you will hear as they're sharing, and listen carefully, because you'll get little nuggets along the way on how it makes them, at the end of the day, the students love learning again. Maybe some don't, and making them to be successful and confident as well at the same time. So, before we go right in, we really want to give a background, and I wanted to use this whole platform to engage our whole division with people outside, because we find we are really just doing one-on-one, on our own, and sometimes we want to share what we do, basically. So we do hope, this topic will be something that's interesting. And here we go.
Dear everyone, as the caption says, a learning journey within. And I'm here to share the beautiful journey on behalf of the specialist teachers. I am Bhavani Jeganathan, and I'm a senior specialist teacher. In DAS, we are trained to deliver different lessons, and of which we would like to share some of the different student portfolios that we've had over the last few years. The literacy lessons can range from simply teaching phonics, which is reading, writing, and spelling, to PSLE preparation, in which we focus on paper 2 components, and up to O-level preparation, where curriculum content is widely covered. Apart from these literacy skills, we also teach other skills such as touch typing to our students. Students who have challenges with writing learn touch typing skills and submit assignments at O-level or even tertiary level. We have also done adult teaching recently, and this has given us a new dimension to teaching. Our math classes cover a range of concept-based lessons to word problems and examination preparation, such as preparing for the math paper for PSLE, where we include examination strategies in our teaching. And not forgetting the preschoolers, we also teach the little ones. Specialist tutors motivate the students by teaching them appropriate tools and strategies which will equip them with better literacy skills. We play a vital role not only to our students, but also to our parents. As part of the process, we strive to write the best IEP, which is known as the Individual Education Plan, by setting accurate and relevant IEP goals that we would want the student to meet over a period of time. We reflect if the goals for the lesson have been met after every lesson, and if need be, we review the IEP goals to alter accordingly to the needs of the student. Specialist teachers, upon reading the psychologist assessments, draw up the IEP plan and share it with the parents. A monthly or sometimes even weekly parent communication is done via WhatsApp, face-to-face, or emails to update parents on the progress the student has made and the key areas of challenges that need to be worked on. Not forgetting the little bits of success the student has made along the way. Our communication doesn't stop here. In fact, we also chat with our student school teachers and psychologists to get an update or review the students' progress in school. During the circuit breaker, where our specialist tutors were quick to embrace online teaching and lessons were conducted usually, but this time it was online. It was such an amazing and great learning experience as we pushed our boundaries to teaching and mastered online tutoring within a short period of time. I've had great teaching moments with my students. My students and I share fun moments apart from learning. Learning has to be fun and also take place. And most importantly, I ensure my students walk out of my room feeling a sense of success and that learning has taken place to move them to the next step. And a positive affirmation goes a very long way for everyone. And a little encouragement brings one to greater leaps and bounds. I am a friend and a mentor to my students even before becoming an educator. All my students know my favorite tagline to them. Never fear because Miss Bhavani is here. Nothing is impossible. As you can see, I am possible in the impossible. And I'm anything that I can put my mind to. Well, thank you for listening to me. And now I would like to hand over to Miss Annabetta. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bhavani, on your learning journey for yourself personally and representing our specialist teachers. Hey, specialist teachers. Yes, let's all share with our audience today. How are you all supporting the students? So first up, I'm going to pick on Gladys.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Gladys.
Morning.
Now, my first question, Gladys, is based on your experience, could you share the various types of intervention? And also, a lot of parents ask me, how long is the intervention for?
Thank you, Annabetta. Short answer to your question is, it is dependent on the child, the living environment, and support from family and school, and how much time the family commits to the remediation approach. So here's how I would go about it. The first step is gathering information about the child, which is also the most important step, either via the IEP and the initial talk with the caregiver, to determine the child's medium of instruction, where they are in terms of development, the level of participation from the caregiver, and lastly, to establish the learning styles of the child, be it visual, audio, kinesthetic, tactile, or a mixture. Also important to know is how the child works. The first best time in the day for maximum attention and focus,
Mm.
their likes, their favorite topics, and dislikes, which also includes what they are like when things don't go their way. So all this information helps me determine the duration of the lessons, the type of intervention, as well as an idea of how long we should be involved. Then we work in collaboration with schools and, if needed, other specialists, for example, the speech and language, occupational therapists, in-house school or private counselors, to coordinate learning objectives and to expand the learning. One key point here is to be in close communication with all parties to minimize confusion of terms. Using an example from my own experience, working with my then 11-year-old dyslexic daughter, who was all ready to want to learn. We work on card drills 5 times a day, Monday to Friday. She had to listen to audiobooks as bedtime reading. Since the spoken language is too fast for her to track the words in the book. So to increase her vocabulary, solitaire card games, pin the tail on a word, were playing. This helped her to relax and to enjoy learning. After 8 months, she was able to read haltingly on her own. And after 1 year, she proceeded to read Harry Potter. So to help a dyslexic child is a team effort. And I found that in general, high participation by the caregiver has resulted in better results. Hence, I encourage all parents and caregivers to learn as much as possible about dyslexia, as this improves relationship, not to mention academic results. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Any other ladies like to comment on what Gladys has just shared?
What Gladys was saying, I share that with her. Like she said, it's important to know their learning styles, which is very, very important, because I have a student who is very good in drawing. So I get him to do compositions. I learn the first paragraph, and after that, he can draw something to go with it. So he's very motivated to do it. So yes, I agree that it's very important to know their learning styles and how they can deliver better.
So like, can I just summarize, Gladys, really getting to know the child intimately, as in the sense of really building a rapport with parents and like all working together. From my own experience, I find it's really helpful in supporting our students.
I think getting the child to trust you, which is very important, the first step, because I imagine they're all in school, they are feeling very demoralized, not confident at all because they can't perform or for various reasons.
Yeah.
They come to us very, very sad, very unhappy, no confidence. So I think our job basically in the first instance is to actually give them that confidence, whereby then they will start to want to be with us and to learn.
Bhavani, can I just ask you, when a child first comes to you, first day, steps into your class, what do you say to the child?
Usually I'll just make sure that the child sets at ease in the class. So probably play an icebreaker game. If the child likes drawing, then probably we'll do a short drawing and a write-up so that the child gets a little more comfortable with me. Okay. And then we will proceed on to other small little things like maybe reading and writing and spelling on a lighter note, so that we build that first rapport. The first rapport sets the tone for the entire lesson and for the sessions to come. So yeah, usually that's what I'll do with the kids, and it has worked all this while. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Let's ask Janitha now. As a specialist teacher, what would you say is your main role? How do you go about achieving, we have the IEP, and so this IEP, you have some goals there. How do you go about achieving some of these goals?
Thank you, Anna. As everyone knows, as teachers, our job is to facilitate the student, right? But before I go into that role, for me, it's also the same. I would really want to, like Gladys said, earn the child's trust. They can be like intimidated when they come to us to learn something. So we really need to make them feel at ease. And there are many ways to do that. So probably just talk to him like a friend. So it's just not only one-sided, not asking questions and getting answers back from him, but it's also, when he says that, when you ask him about his likes and dislikes, we could also share something that we like and we dislike, or when we were young, what we like to do. I mean, there's something similar we could say, yeah, I used to like to do that too. So it's like slowly bringing him down to or rather we are regressing to his level and making him feel comfortable. Because when that is set, it's only then that I can really, really play my part as a facilitator, because then he knows, okay, teacher's fine, teacher's friendly, teacher's approachable. So let's go halfway first with her, whatever she wants to do, and then after that go on fully, and then that's how I can manage to for the student to achieve the goals that I have set for him.
You know, you have a recent case.
Yes,
this little boy. He's a really interesting profile. Can you just share a little bit?
Yes, it's
Really
my pleasure to share that with you, because because the first time I saw him, he was like he was very disappointed to meet me. I'm not sure, because from his expression, he was laughing and playing with his brother. And when I appeared in front of him and said hello, and I introduced myself, his whole expression changed. Then I thought, oh no, you know. So anyway, so he was his English is very staggered and quite difficult with the accent and everything. So one day I was doing preschool work with him. He's actually 11 years old, and I was doing preschool worksheet with him. And he became so upset, and he said, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And I was wondering, what is he saying? So I listened carefully, and I realized he's saying, it is difficult. It is difficult. So I said, okay. Then I was thinking to myself, okay, now I got to turn this around. And then I said, I called out his name and I said, you know, those pencils that you have from China, I've never seen them here. Can I have one of them, please? And he said, his whole demeanor changed. And he said, yes, I can give it to you. And he took out one pencil to give it to me. And I said, and I was touched. You know, he floored me, and I was touched. And I said, you are so kind. You know, none of my other students, when I ask them for something, will they give it to me, you know? And that really set the pace. And he was like, he calmed down, and he was very happy that I said to him, which I really meant, that he was very kind. And then he got on to doing his work, and he completed his work. And from then on, we never looked back. We became best friends, and he really, really improved.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very, very sweet, touching. I like that story. Meetal is one of our newer teachers, joined us last year. And, you know, Meetal, as a specialist teacher, and you support, I know your background is in supporting a lot of students with different backgrounds, autism, dysgraphia. How do you navigate in supporting students with comorbidities? How do you enable their strengths and then bridge the gap when they are having comorbidities? Maybe you could share with us, Meetal.
Thank you, Miss Anna, for introducing me and like a brief profile of what I do. When I first meet a student who has comorbidities, I would like to gather more information on what interests or motivates them, because it's handy to know from their reports and parents sharing or discussion with other professionals like the occupational therapist or the speech therapist or even the psychologist that they were assessed by, to gather information on how their diagnosis can manifest in challenges that the child faces or behaviors that they show. So it's not very straightforward, but yet you have to do some background work in order to really understand the child's unique strengths and abilities. So it takes some rapport building during the first session and during actually practically every session. You're trying to build the momentum and the rapport and see which activities to carry out with the child based on their interests. And if you were to find out more information about what they really like a particular cartoon about Transformers or something about Frozen, so, you know, you can build a reward system based on that. And it could be a token-based reward system. And the rewards could be something based on, you know, the child's interest as well. It could be playing a Lego game, reading one of his favorite books, or giving him a choice of a few books and getting him to choose from one if the child likes to read. Listening to music. So, for example, if the child is having ADHD, or is just having difficulty staying seated or focusing longer than 5 to 10 minutes due to inattentive tendencies, it's advisable to break up the lesson into shorter parts. So you do hands-on activities, have timed activities, you try to intersperse games and movement, and you reward your tokens and points consistently throughout the whole 1 hour or 2 hour lesson. So the child knows what to expect and why are some rewards, harder to earn, or why it's easier to earn based on what you're rewarding the child with. So it's meaningful to set targets and goals with students so they feel motivated to keep going and they can see their progress. Yeah, I think that should be something that most of our specialist tutors are all maintaining and doing.
Yeah. Anyone to share on that?
Hi Anna. Hi everyone.
Hi.
My name is Cheryl.
Hi.
Hi.
Cheryl.
And I'm specialized tutoring for preschool level. And I can relate to Meeta quite a bit because at the preschool level, they come to us perhaps with not a dyslexic diagnosis, but however, they may have other different issues that may evolve into a comorbidity. Like what Meeta is saying, like for example, an autistic child may later be autistic and dyslexic at the same time, or ADHD and dyslexic at the same time. So at the preschool level, we are open to specific learning differences. So sometimes it can be challenging, especially with preschool level. So I can totally relate to what Meeta is saying, that, resonating about like what Gladys or Janitha was saying about the high interest and about building the rapport and the momentum all the time. So thanks, Meeta, for sharing.
And I'm a great believer in children showing us how to teach them. Once I was teaching this the boy has like Mensa type of level of IQ. In P1, he still can't read. I mean, this boy is just so bright, knows so many things. And the challenge is him really accepting how to read. And so I found he actually taught me, Miss Anna, can we do this? Miss Anna, can we do that? And so it's just like you're learning with the child. And of course, after 20 lessons, the child definitely, he could read, he got on with it. But just my point is that we are really also learning from our students. Apart from being specialist teachers, the children are teaching us to be specialist teachers by our interaction. So, Cheryl, may I ask you, motivating students, I think, is really high on our priority as educational therapists, specialist teachers, because a lot of the students come with low self-esteem. They don't want to do the work, or they hide under the table, or just signs that, they are struggling with people, maybe with failure. So motivating students, I think, with specific learning differences, perhaps you could share in your journey as a specialist teacher, must be one of the most creative roles, so that they really enjoy learning, because at the end of the day, that is what we want our kids to have, a love for learning.
Yes, thank you, Anna. So a lot of times we do encourage smaller social group setting for in terms of learning as well. However, there are certain instances where specialized tutoring one-to-one is really more conducive, whether it's for parents and for the child. So when it comes to motivation, and when it comes to so-called the light bulb moments, but for both specialized tutor as well as for the children, perhaps I would just like to share one of my so-called case study. Let's call him Ben. I feel that in terms of motivation, like what Meeta was saying, Janitha was saying, Bhavani and Gladys, we look at the IEP, we look at the gathering of the information, the likes and the dislikes and the high interest. For me, it was just really understanding, a continuous understanding and working in rapport. Seeing, for example, that visual cues work with this child. So having visual schedules so that he knows what he's supposed to do first, what he's supposed to do next. It was actually in itself a light bulb moment and a motivation, because then he knows that if I clear 2, 3, 4 to do on the visual schedule, I'm done. for the lesson. And Gladys talked about duration. So at the beginning, because of COVID-19, we were doing online. And for preschools, children, it is really a mountainous task to go on online platform. But with Ben, start off with 40 minutes and then extending it longer. The other light bulb moment, having a say of what they can do, to do a worksheet first or to do reading first. Not being rigid in my lesson planning, but at the same time for the child, having a say, ownership, independence of choice. Okay, teacher Cheryl is saying that I can do this or I can do this. The other light bulb moment, actually, which was quite astonishing, is that I realized that because he likes YouTube video, he can sit through a YouTube video of a storybook more so than me turning the page of a book to read to him. Seeing me on the platform, I realized that he was really making eye contact with me online. It takes the physical and mental stress of dealing with me personally on site. So I can see more rapport through an online mode. So actually, it became a lot about moment for both of us and also for the parents, because I received quite positive background from through this learning platform. So yes.
Yeah, thank you. You know, Bhavani, you support some of your students online still. You support, right? And I know you have students with comorbidities. How maybe you can share some strategies that you have used. How do you
not just online, also when they come for face-to-face classes. I have only one strategy that I always do, and sometimes I forget, but it's very funny how strategy. Yeah. Basically, I like to motivate the kids a lot because they come with a lot of stress after school, right? And they might have not had a good day. So usually I'll ask them only 2 questions, or in fact 3. What was the best experience you've had for the day so far? Tell me about it. That's the first question. And the second question is, what were the challenges you have had the day so far? And how can I help you with it? What is it that I can do, or what's the difference that I can do for you that will make you walk out of my classroom feeling better? So these are the 3 questions I'll ask them. So it kind of sets the excitement with the kids, because they would have already kind of formulated some answers when they come. And it has brought me a long way with the kids, because I also get to learn about how they have been managing things in school, or even they like to talk about the weekend, for example. So it's not just school, it could be home, other activities that happen around them. So there was once I actually forgot to ask my student, and he said, "You forgot about something today." You forgot to ask me the 3 questions. And I'm like, oh gosh. So it has really set an impression in the child, and he's looking forward to me asking him. So that made me realize how much of an impact such things create. So I usually do a bit of motivation talk with them, and then at the end of the lesson, I'll say, okay, let's look at the 3 questions that you had today. Have we done some work around it? Have we made you feel better? What is it that you're working out with right now? And then, so I'll get the kids to reflect a bit more. Yeah. So that's the takeaway that I usually do, whether it's online or offline, both ways. Yeah.
And I think that's something that's really something we can do as parents with our own kids.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's really good.
In fact, it's very helpful because it also gives me an opportunity to understand the kid more. So it gives me a greater, I would say, a better communication with parents too, where I can text them that, hey, you know, this thing happened in school, or something happened in school, and I've done this work with J or with S, for example. Maybe you might want to work through with him as to how he can cope with this better. So that kind of helps it through.
That's great motivation. Anyone else want to give us tips? Great topic of motivation. This is where our students sometimes struggle.
You'll find that a lot of the children confide a lot more in us than in you.
That's so true, so true.
And we get to know a lot more, which then we can feed back, because there's a lot of times when the children are having difficulties in school, whether it's bullying, whether it's whatever reasons, they come to us in a very depressed mode, and we find it very difficult to actually uplift them. Then when they open up to us, we then can solve the problem with them and then carry on with our teaching. bringing this news back to the parents is sometimes very useful, especially for teenagers, I think, because
they're not aware the child may be going through.
They're not aware, or they don't want to talk to their parents. So we are the best confidant, I think.
Thank you so much. Sometimes the students present themselves to us. They really do share a lot of very personal things happening. Thank you for everyone for sharing. Julie.
Hi, morning, Anna.
Hi, morning. You support both MLP, our main literacy program, our students in the group class, as well as you're one of our specialist teachers.
That's right.
And so you really have a really broad mix of international as well as MOE students. As you've been supporting both, what would you say would be the main differences in your approach?
It's an interesting question, Anna. I think, as all the other therapists have said, every student is an individual, and that's going to direct our approach primarily. But yes, there are some subtle differences that I think do come into play when working with local and international students. Working with international students, I find that they come to us from a variety of different international schools, and thus with a variety of backgrounds and needs. So what we find is that sometimes their failure to progress at school is attributed to their having to learn in a new language, which means that sometimes their actual learning needs may be masked. So when a learning difference is finally identified and diagnosed, parents are doubly anxious to make up for lost time. Secondly, we see that the student may be hampered by the effects of transitioning. At a very basic level, they might just be tired from jet lag, from trips home when they can, when there's no pandemic. But at a deeper level, they do lack the constancy and structure of everyday life, especially when that everyday life keeps changing and they can't control it. Lastly, the typical international student that we see at DAS International is what we call a third culture kid. And as such, that this child would be suffering from an inherent lack of belonging and low self-esteem. So my approach to working with international students includes prioritizing the following. Firstly, to emphasize phonics instruction in a multi-sensory way, especially if I sense that there is a multitude of pronunciations in the home or the school environment. I would also plan sensitive lessons with materials that are relevant to home and host culture. It's very important then to understand and work with the curriculum of the international school in which they have been placed. And this varies from school to school. Finally, it's really important to recognize their feelings and incorporate plenty of activities to nurture their self-esteem and build confidence. Now let's talk about the MOE students. They arrive at DAS International from local households when they are primarily feeling academic pressure. And I see that the academic environment for MOE students is quite different than at international schools. We find structure, predictability, and rhythm. And this rhythm doesn't change year on year for the schools, the students, the parents. And this predictability means that we have quite a tight framework to work within. And I find that is grounding for the students. So when working with the MOE students, I really do try and recognize the academic pressure points and develop literary skills that they can relate to and use in their typical school exams. I also want to mention Singlish here. Whilst it's a wonderful multicultural dialect, it doesn't lend itself to correct speaking and writing in English. So I do spend time enforcing the grammar rules that Singlish seems to have somehow forgotten. Lastly, with our MOE students, I do work with the parents and the caregivers to manage their expectations, to recognize and promote other non-academic skills of the student, which can also help to nurture confidence and success. So in conclusion, yes, there is a subtle difference in approach between international students and MOE students, but overall, I would agree with my fellow therapists that the individual needs of the student are the driving force in determining the approach to working with each individual student. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing. So what a diverse group you have. And for myself, we have maybe students from, 30 over international schools from Singapore. So a big community and a diverse community. And within that are the different cultural experiences and mindsets. So we really, I think, need to, how to say, get really in touch with where the child comes from, their culture, and be sensitive to some of their needs, and not to assume, when we're speaking with the parents or with the teachers. And for us, we always like to ask permission. Can we talk to the teachers? Because not all schools want to have information shared. So we need to really be respectful of what the parents really want. Gladys, you're another one of our teachers who has taught students from both the international and the MOE schools. And I've gone on with you to several case meetings at the school. Can you just share, we kind of build around through meeting the schools. With international schools, we tend to engage with the schools directly.
Yes, with the international schools, if the meeting is set up, the parent is always there together with the learning support. Sometimes we'll have the principal as well, and of course the homeroom teacher. With that, we looked at all the different IEPs. Right? The school has their own, and we have our own, and of course the parents have their own agenda, which is brilliant, because then we come in and come for a compromise.
Yeah, the expectations are set better, right, when everybody meets.
Correct, and understanding and of how we should even behave towards the child. We standardize it a bit, and there is a very good communication going on with all parties involved.
Like one of my highlights is having these case meetings.
Yes.
Because it's like we are working in our own world with the child, and then when we go into the case meeting, it's completely different what the school shares with us, yes, or what the parents are telling us, and then everything, the whole dynamics, then we understand the whole picture.
Correct. Yes, right? I think it's brilliant to have everybody working.
Yeah, so we really encourage meetings with schools, whether it's international or MOE. If we can manage and arrange, we do really encourage parents and teachers to help us to get into your schools, speak with your teachers, and we're really happy to share the IEPs. They're not, they're confidential, but not if the parent give permission. We want to share it so that we are supporting the child.
I think what everyone is saying is build rapport with parents, and we are trying to build that partnership with them. So I think for all the teachers, you also share snapshots of what you do for each lesson with the parents. And that's what helps them to also get a glimpse of what the child is learning during the sessions, whether it's face-to-face or online. So that really helps them to review and follow up with certain strategies and certain concepts learned. Everyone's doing a really good job at trying their best to build that partnership with parents and other professionals.
Yeah, I think you're right, Meetal. I think ongoing, I think communication is really the word that we really want to keep developing. Bhavani, how do you just a final question, I know we're running out of time. How do you update your parents on how your child is doing?
Actually, there are many modes of communication, but the ones that I use very regularly would be the WhatsApp, or at minimum, at least once a month, I'll send out a WhatsApp. Or if, let's say, the lesson for the day did not turn out to be as good as we wanted it to be, the outcome, then I would send a WhatsApp to the parent line. The other mode that I also do would be Zoom. I do a few Zoom meetings with my parents. So it's more towards biannually. So we have a short discussion of the IEP, and then how did the child do in school so far for any tests or exams, and how we can gear towards doing better lessons for the kid, and what are some of the concerns that I can address for the parents.
In summary, we really need to all be in touch with parents.
Yeah, regular communication is key.
Regular is key, right? And to make the parents, that they are part of this learning journey. It's not just the specialist teacher and the child, it's the parents and the child and us, and everyone has a part to play in supporting a particular child. So with that, thank you everyone. Thank you especially to my specialist teachers for making the time today to share. Take it over to Deborah. Deborah, we will be having some Q&As, right?
That's correct, we will. But just before we do that, let's get some feedback, shall we? Because it's very important for us to be able to improve on what we do. So help us out with filling out the feedback. We'd really appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed this session. I mean, this is heartfelt sharing by our educational therapists. And you can see that they have a lot of heart when it comes to supporting our students and your children. Just before we go on to questions, Anna has an important meeting to attend, so she may leave us before we finish the question and answer session, but she leaves behind some very experienced people who can answer your questions.
There is maybe Deb, I can start. There was a question.
Oh yes, Anna, yes.
Yeah, let me get that question answered now. The question was asked to Miss Meetal, and the question is, if the child is in a mainstream school and has ADHD, how can we break down their study time to smaller bite size when the normal academic paper is at least 50 minutes and the child is 13 years old?
Okay, thanks for that question, and thanks, Miss Anna, for reading it out loud. I think if you have a paper that's 50 minutes long, the good thing to do would be to break it down, say, into 3 or 4 parts. And if, let's say, you're getting your child to practice a mock paper, so you want them to build these study skills on how to do each segment of the paper and certain sections, to have like certain strategies that they want to practice, you know, across the board for different subjects where you have different mock papers. So it is good to really break it down so that when they are building these kind of strategies and study skills, they actually focus and learn the various concepts better. And it's really much more beneficial because they can absorb information better, as opposed to having to absorb too much information in that whole span of 50 minutes or 60 minutes, you know, just at one go. It's overwhelming, right? So in between the breaks, the child can stand up, you know, walk around, maybe even just go out of the house for a short walk, 5 minutes, and then be back inside the house. And it could also be just having a snack break or a water break, you know, something that will help to kind of energize the child again for the next lap of practicing questions and practicing like the mock examination paper, just to be able to gauge, you know, how can they put their mind to it. So another thing that's helpful is the reviewing and repetition of information. Visual learning using mind maps, concept maps, or like those kind of guided charts. So that kind of breaks down information into parts, and the child will be able to refer to it for science or math, you know. So that could be very helpful. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think I'll just add on as well, just a bit of some of the things that I do with my students. I've got a few P6 students who are doing math, and the math paper can be quite long, so it's segregated to paper 1 and paper 2. So usually what I'll do is that if suppose there were to be about, for example, about 30 questions they need to finish in paper 1, I would segregate the questions 1 to 10 minutes, for example, and then questions 11 to 20, 15 minutes, and then questions 20 to 25, maybe 25 minutes. And then summing up, so basically breaking it down and getting the parents to work along with me to give them mock tests at home for sections question 1 to 10, and then 11 to 20, and 20 to 25. Why so? Because most of our kids, I think the greatest challenge is being able to sit and do the paper finish on time. So usually what I'll do, I'll just tell the parents, hey guys, this is the timing we're looking at, drill them at home, because we got to get them ready real exams. So these are the small little things that I do with the kids in class and update the parents as well. Yeah.
I know as a parent, when my children were given extra time in exams, how to manage that extra time and what they need to do is important. So breaking it down into chunks and studying in chunks gets them used to it, gets them used to managing their time, because one of the biggest concerns is with our kids is like they don't manage time well. You know, they either think something takes too long to do, or something that's easy to do, you know, they spend too much time on it. And so they need that guidance as to how to manage their time well. And yeah, it can be a very difficult thing for them to learn, even in adulthood. Yeah.
I've got oh, thank you for the reply. We got a reply in about the time management. Thank you. There is a question that's asking, and especially I think now is so relevant, right? Because now everyone has now gone to go back to online.
Yes.
So home-based learning is here to stay.
Yes.
I hope not for long. So, but we're all on board and experienced. We've done this before, right? Specialist teachers. So we will tackle it with enthusiasm. And a question is though, how will the online lessons, I think it's really important just to appease or just to reassure parents, how will the online lessons help my child to learn better? And in what ways is she engaged with the online? Can one of you take that question?
Okay, I'll take that question. I always tell my parents that the online lessons are not different from the face-to-face. They are the same. Okay, so basically when it comes to resources, worksheets, online learning has moved a long way. We've got many platforms that are out there. You can read very nice storybooks online with audio and with lots of interactive modes. You can also do maths online with a visual manipulatives. And I would say that having taught online since last year, some of my students, I would say most of my students, are more focused during the lesson. As opposed to a face-to-face, sometimes you get a little distracted. And when it's online, they put in, I can see that they put in more effort in to do the worksheet because it's a collaboration. We work together online. For example, you can use Zoom or you can use Google Classroom. And I recently used Kami. So Kami allows the student to see the teacher, and at the same time, collaboration works together. So the student keys in the answer and I work together with the student. Apart from this, we also do our phonics online. We've got our own decks that are actually in a PowerPoint or in our own resources that we have created over the years. So definitely online classes are no different from face-to-face.
Super, that's very encouraging, because I think a lot of parents are apprehensive on that. Deborah, if I may ask you to take over for now.
That's fine. Yes, I know you have an important meeting to go to.
Thank you, everyone. Deborah, over to you.
Okay. All right. So we do have another question to ask, and this is about PSLE. The question was, if my child has goals to do better for PSLE, can our specialist tutors really set goals for that? And is it possible? She's in primary 5 now. Gladys, I'll ask you instead. How we do this for a primary 5 preparing for PSLE?
Primary 5. Okay, a lot depends on the child, of course.
Yes.
What you're going to find is you're going to have 2 sets of children, one very eager and one probably, not so keen. Yeah. So with the very eager ones, it's very easy. I mean, you basically go through the papers with them. And also, I think on top of that, teach them some other skills, because the comprehension papers can be quite different. Inferential skills and the contextual skills. So for the very enthusiastic primary 5, I would go through that as well. Now, for the ones that are not so enthusiastic, I think it's like we have to sort of go very slowly again to build up whatever sections that they're not clear on or not very good at. Because I mean, the PSLE papers, as you know, is divided into paper 1, paper 2, and there's a lot of, you know, different skill sets to work on. So
Exactly.
yeah, I would go through that, plow through them during primary 5. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to confidence, really. Getting the kids in the right mindset to say, yes, you know, I can do this. And you know, I know there's a lot of paper 2 issues when it comes to marking, I know, but ultimately, if they're confident and like they go into the exam with that level of confidence, then that's great. And also, I know that these kids just have to work hard, right? They just have to work hard and lots of practice. And so that's what comes down to a lot of the lessons that happen, you know, like a lot of it is a lot of practice. Isn't that right, Janitha? Yeah.
Yes, Deb. Yes, I have my student. I actually broke it down, the components. He doesn't have dyslexia, but he has other issues. So what I did was his spelling is not too bad. So I dived into parts of speech where I could tell him about word forms. You know, when you see an ION or when you see an LY, what part of speech is that? Is it an adverb, or is it a noun, or is it a verb? So when it comes to grammar, close, it's easy for him, and even for editing. So he knows which one he has to put. Like, for example, they have the editing says electricity lamp. So what the electricity is wrong. So what would you put there to describe the lamp? So then I have gone through a lot of suffixes with him because he's not a MLP student. So I've gone through a lot of suffixes and prefixes and roots. So he knows a little bit about roots, but not too much into it because I'm only doing school curriculum. So I did a lot of this practice, and you know what? He's improved so much in that. He used to fail, but now he's like, you know, like 2 or 3 marks more than the passing mark. So I'm very happy because that was one of the skills I really zoomed in and taught him. So that's why, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we've run out of time, really. We've actually gone over time, but this has been such an interesting session. Thank you very much for sharing. Is there anything that anyone would like to have a final say about your experiences at DAS International and Specialist Tutoring that you'd like to, that as Anna would say, those little special nuggets? Anything anyone else would like to say before we finish?
I'd like to add on just one.
Yes.
Basically, when I prepare my students for PSLE, especially the English paper, I would represent it in the form of a tree. A tree has many fruits. We have low-hanging fruits and fruits that are very high up there. So I'll ask my students, which of these fruits or the components of the paper would you think you can grab first? So they might say listening comprehension, for example, or oral, for example. And in composition, there's this thing called situational writing. So I'll say, yes, you got it. These three components are your low-hanging fruits. Catch them first by working hard and practicing on them first. So I kind of navigate the lesson along the way and get them to go up higher and higher. So I'll ask them, so which part of the tree are you at right now? Do we need to jump a bit higher? So basically, just as one of the things that I do with my students. Thank you, Deb.
Well, thank you very much for sharing today. And I would just like to say that you've been a wonderful audience, even though I crashed at the beginning of it. And I'd just like to talk to you about what we're doing in our next webinar. We have 3 specialist teachers who will be sharing on how curriculum-based remediation supports your child, because we're not only just about literacy and math, we're also helping in other curriculums as well. And this will be another engaging session, not one to miss. So if you haven't, if you haven't registered for that, please do so. I'm sure we'd love to see you on the 10th of June. Also, if you haven't already done so, please check out Unite SPLD. That's our annual conference. We have an amazing lineup of presenters and topics. We also have an access on demand. You can access on demand libraries of resources for 6 months, as well as exhibitions and interaction with the presenters. It's excellent value for the ticket price. There's a 60% discount for DAS parents. So join us for the conference and learn how you can better support your child. And we look forward to seeing you soon. So thank you very much for joining us. Bye.